it is a complexity that I added that I didn't think of until about midway through development, and then just had a very sad face when I did. So, getting to another set of, I'm not going to talk about other set of APIs, but anyway, front and center, you know what it does. Like when you click on a window, it does stuff, it, brings all the windows forward, or if you shift click, it just brings one of them, does all that stuff or whatever, right? How front and center works is it's able to listen through an API for an event, which is new activation. A new app has been activated, right? So anytime a new app has been activated, the operating system lets front and center know and says, hey, by the way, I know you've just been hanging out there front and center, but here's what happened. A new application has been activated. At that point, front and center gets to choose what to do. You can say, oh, if I'm configured and it's supposed to bring that application to the front, I'll do that now. I'll call that API that says bring all the windows of that application to the front, right? That's basically what it does. Like it waits for activations. It doesn't know how the app got activated. It can tell which app is activated, but it doesn't know why. And so there's a bunch of weird heuristics that front and center has to do to figure out, should I do anything about this, or should I just hang back and not do anything? And it doesn't get notified about every activation, just certain ones. Because, like, for example, if you use like expose or mission control to activate an application, it looks different to front and center. Anyway, there's front and center doing that thing over there. Here I am writing switch class, and I decide when I'm, making it that it should have the same kind of options as front and center does, where it's like, oh, you can put it in one mode when you click and it will bring all the windows to the front, and then shift click to just bring one, right? And I did that, and I said, well, front and center has that opposite mode where you can do a modern mode and it does the opposite behavior where shift click works if I clicked it and vice versa. So I should do that in switch class too. So that, because if you like using it in modern mode, if you want your default to be just a single window comes forward, wouldn't it be nice to have the default be a single window come forward in switch class as well? And that would make it different than the dock, because you can't control that in the dock. When you click on a dock icon, it always brings all the windows forward, in theory, if it's not bugging out at that particular moment, right? So I did that. So I added the options, easy enough to go two different ways in switch class. And then it occurred to me that if you have front and center and switch class installed, and you have their preferences set the opposite way, so if you have front and center set in classic mode, but switch class set so that when you click a single icon, it's supposed to bring a single window forward, this will happen. You'll go to switch class, you'll click on an app icon, it will say, I'm in the mode where I'm supposed to bring a single window forward. So it will go and say, I'm activating Chrome, and I'm bringing a single Chrome window to the front. And then front and center will get notified, hey, front and center, a new application was just activated. You think you should do something? And front and center will say, there was a mouse click, and an app was activated. And I'm in the mode where if you click activates an application, I'm supposed to bring all those windows forward. So it will. So front and center will undo the action that was supposed to happen in switch class. Switch class said bring one window forward, then front and center said, I know, you want all the windows forward, and it will bring them all forward. And what this looks like if you're using switch class is, I configured switch class to just bring one window forward, but every time I click on it, it brings them all forward. And it's not switch class that's doing it, it's front and center that's doing it, right? So you see that, like, I could say, this is an invalid use case. Don't set your preferences that way. But they're two different applications, and it seems like a reasonable thing to want to do. When I click on switch class, I just want one window to come forward. But the other times I click, I want all of them to come forward because that's how I have front and center configured. So this is a complication entirely of my own making. But once I realized it existed, I'm like, this will, like, people will end up setting it this way and they will think it's buggy. And they'll be like, your app doesn't work. I said one window and every time I click it, they all come forward, right? And I don't want to have to explain to them that don't set your preferences that way or whatever. And I don't have enough information to sort that out on either end, because like when front and center gets notified that something was clicked, I don't even know like what event caused that to happen. Like front and center itself has some very scary, weird code to do heuristics to like, keep track of the last time a mouse was clicked, but I don't know where or why it was clicked. I just know that it was clicked, and I do this time windowing around activations to figure out if that click belongs to a thing. Like it's scary and everything, but it mostly works, and that's not where the bugs come from. The bugs are all like nothing happened because I called the API and the windows didn't come to the front or whatever. Anyway, there's front and center doing that over there. But from front and center perspective, I have no idea if you just clicked on switch glass. Like I have no way of knowing that. I can know that you clicked, but I don't know if you like legit clicked on a single Chrome window or if you clicked on the Chrome icon in switch class. I have no idea that happened. And so I need to figure out a way to deal with this. And then the simple application used to be like, oh, I'll make a little palette and there'll be icons and you click on them and I'll call a single API. That all went out the window as soon as I realized this was an issue. Maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe I should have said, you know what? This is, again, an invalid use case, or I'll take away that preference in switch class and you can't run it in that mode. But I'm going to run both applications at once, and I would know that there was this problem, and I decided I wanted to tackle it. So I had to figure out a way to get these two apps to talk to each other. And they're both sandboxed, so a lot of things are out of the question. And I had some ideas about, I mean, I don't know, you two are iOS programmers, but I think you know enough about the APIs that are similar enough. How would you handle this? Can you come up with some spur of the moment technical solutions to the problem that I have here?
An automatic kicking machine?
I've been doing a lot of clips that I've seen your kicking machine in action. Yeah. I'm not going to reject anything for grossness, but literally, how can I make this happen? Again, what I want to happen is I click on switch class and it brings a single window forward. And even though front and center is configured that it's supposed to bring all windows forward when a new app is activated, it has to somehow know that, this time lay off, because it was switch class that brought that window to the front, and it's configured to say, don't bring them all to the front. So front and center lay off. How do I make that happen?
Can you do Darwin notifications between the two apps?
What would I say between
them? I guess you would post notification from the one that wasn't, or from the one that is activating, basically saying like, hey, I'm about to activate this behavior. And then post another one saying, I'm done activating this behavior, and have like a slight delay between those things so that that way, I don't know. I mean,
as you're thinking about it, you're realizing I'm creating a race condition. So this was my first inclination too, is like, I want switch class to tell front and center, I'm doing a thing, lay off.
Right.
But all these APIs that I'm using, like, so switch class, that's like synchronous. Like someone clicks and I get to run code in response to that click. But on the front and center side, I'm just there like listening for notifications that the operating system gives to me. The operating system tells me, by the way, a new app became active, and I have no control over when the operating system tells me that. Also, I'm watching for mouse clicks in front and center, just so I can know, hey, they clicked a mouse. Can't tell you anything else about it, but they clicked a mouse. I also have no control over when those notifications come, which is part of the complexity inside of front and center, which is sometimes I get the mouse click before the activation, and sometimes I get it after. So to make a decision, I need both pieces of information, but there's a time windowing thing there, and I don't want it to be laggy or slow, right? So if I'm going to have switch class say, hey, front and center, I'm about to activate an application, leave it alone. Just don't touch it. I know you're going to get, at some point in the future, you're going to get an activation notification, but do not react to it. I can send that with Darwin notifications, which is just this kernel-mediated messaging mechanism that's, in theory, very fast between two applications that are on the same operating system. It's not a socket connection. It's not networking. It is just a way through the kernel for you to pass simple messages to each other. First hurdle to that is sandbox applications can't send Darwin notifications to other sandbox applications unless they're inside the same app group. So app groups exist on iOS and on Mac, and you have to make an app group, and it gives them
costs, secure new inventory, or maybe pay unexpected. Kept that attitude going of this keyboard is great. This is fine. We have no problems with this. Through all those revisions because they didn't want to admit to themselves properly that they were wrong. And then secondly, there's a huge economic thing of like, you're going to have this manufacturing line running for X years. It's going to cost you, X dollars to retool and redesign or re-engineer a different keyboard into this line. And I have a feeling they just spreadsheeted it. And at some point, somebody decided, hey, you know what? It would be too expensive to fix this faster. And so we're going to fix it on our timeline. And in the meantime, oh well, we'll do a repair extension program and sweep it under the rug. Problem is, that didn't work. We are sponsored this week by Linode, my favorite web host. Look, no matter what you need, if you need servers, whether it's from a personal project or a hobby, from small to big, Linode has the pricing, the support, and the scale that you need for your project. They have 11 data centers worldwide now, and they're always adding more. They recently added Sydney, Australia today using code ATP2020 to get a $20 credit. And that'll give you access to everything they have to offer. You have native SSD storage on all their servers. All this comes in starting at just $5 a month. This is great for people who just want to get started, who you want to try things out. And all their plans from, I use mostly the bigger ones, but all their plans, in my opinion, are the best value in the business. And I've been with them for almost a decade, and the entire time, they've stayed the best value in the business. Whenever new technology gets better or gets cheaper, they give you more for your money. So it's super great to be a Linode customer. I've been with them for all this time. I run all of Overcast there. I run Markets.org there. I run the live streaming server for this podcast there. Everything I run there, I'm very happy with. See for yourself, linode.com/ATP. Using promo code ATP2020 to get a $20 credit. That could be 4 months free on a $5 a month plan. So, once again, linode.com/ATP, promo code ATP2020. Thank you so much to Linode for hosting all my stuff and sponsoring our show.
You posted some interesting things to Instagram today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to get away with this.
We'll close out the crank chapter here. This will be the last thing I'm cranky about tonight.
So I look at my Instagram stories at some point in the evening, and I see that you were lamenting the fact that you couldn't debug something in Xcode, if I'm not mistaken, in the beta specifically. And then you were lamenting the fact that it required Catalina. And then next thing I know, you're doing the thing that you swore that I was not allowed to do, Dad. And you're installing Catalina on a device. I'm presuming it's your iMac Pro. Did you buy your Mac Pro before or after this travesty happened?
I haven't had time yet.
Are you going to?
I don't know. My fan noise is back. I still got to figure that out. But
oh no,
I'm so annoyed. I've been resisting Catalina on my main iMac Pro. I've had it on my laptop because it came with it, and it's been I've been dealing with it. It's fine. But as I said before, I didn't see any reason to upgrade to Catalina, and there only seemed to be downsides and risks, no real upsides. And well, now I finally had to do it because I upgraded my phone to the 13.4 beta, which presumably sometime in the next few weeks will become the 13.4 release of iOS. And you can't develop for that phone with Xcode 11.3. You can only develop for it, which means I can only do like the build and run and install development builds on my phone easily from the new beta of Xcode 11.4, which requires Catalina. They do this every year. Where every year, at some point halfway through the year or so, they make the newest version of Xcode require the newest macOS. And that is what finally pushes developers who have been reluctant to install the new version of macOS to finally do it. Because while it is possible to continue doing my job without being able to instantly run development builds on my phone, it becomes much more cumbersome. And it's just the cost of that to me is too great. So I bit the bullet and I upgraded on podcast day, mere hours
That's
before the
bold.
podcast.
Very bold maneuver.
Yes, and here I am running Catalina on my desktop finally. So I'm finally fully upgraded, reluctantly.
I've been really eyeing, both side-eyeing and excited-eyeing Catalina on account of, starting to do some SwiftUI work, and it would be so much nicer, as we discussed last episode, to be able to do that on my iMac Pro. But my two dads, that's a reference, John, have told me that I am not allowed to upgrade to Catalina, so I haven't. And here it is. Now, I am the only holdout on Mojave, is that correct? Because, John, you have to run it on your Mac Pro, correct?
Yeah, my wife's iMac is still on Mojave, I thought about upgrading her, but I'm like, you know what? Just don't. Just I don't have many Catalina problems. I had one weird freak out where I don't know if it was Xcode related. I was always running Xcode, so I don't know whether to blame it. But at a certain point, how did it manifest? I would select. I was fast user switching between people to take screenshots, and I selected a different account from the fast user switching menu. And nothing happened.
Cool.
I was trapped. I could not switch to another user. And I was like, okay, this means time to restart. Like no error message, nothing in the console, nothing like it just, you would pick something from fast user switching and it would just blink and then nothing would ever happen. And that, I said, okay, this is a sign I need to restart. And so I did, and everything was fine after that. But other than that, and of course the bazillion permission dialogues and everything that Marco was putting in his story that we just know are inherent in Catalina, I haven't actually had any Catalina problems.
You better knock on some wood real quick.
And Mojave, by the way, which my wife is still running, every once in a while, like it decides to activate the screensaver in such a way that it won't deactivate it, and I have to SSH in and kill the screensaver process. Right, so the Mojave is not without its set of weird bugs too. So I figure I'll just stick with the set of bugs I know in Mojave, and Catalina on my Mac Pro has been fine. But yeah, I saw the new Xcode beta come out, and I'm not down with especially if it was about to release an app, not down with the Xcode betas. But I feel you, Marco, with like at a certain point you do have to upgrade, and I guess your time has come. And I think you picked a reasonable time. Like I don't think it'll be a disaster for you.
This is about as long as I make it every year. This actually, I think, is longer than I usually tend to make it because usually there's some new feature of the OS that I eventually just break down because I want it. And yeah, like Casey, like your Swift UI previewing thing that you want, like that's a pretty good one of those features. Like it would make sense. Like the reason I did it was because okay, now some like pretty important part of my job has become impossible on Mojave. That's motivation enough for me to make the jump. For you, if you're doing a lot of Swift UI stuff, that live preview part of Swift UI is pretty nice. Yep. And it would kind of make sense that, okay, you should probably update if that's a really important thing to you. But, for everyone, the threshold of where that is going to be different. Like, again, like in past years, there have been such compelling features sometimes that you do it for that. For everybody, the threshold is going to be different of like, when do you update to a new OS? And if the OS has compelling features, that threshold could be, pretty soon after release. I mean, you could even be one of those day one cowboys. The level-headed approach is usually maybe wait until the 0.1 comes out. That's usually a pretty safe bet most years. But that threshold moves for various people depending on their priorities and depending on the particular release. And that was true until today. And it's no longer true, and so here I am.
I'm sorry, but does that mean I'm allowed to, dads, finally?
I've seen some people complaining that it is Swift Playgrounds on the Mac, like literally, Swift Playgrounds, the thing they demoed on the iPad at WWDC all those years ago. It's that on the Mac. But I think when people saw it, they were thinking, oh, it'll be like Swift Playgrounds, but all the APIs will be Mac APIs. And that's not the case. This is a Catalyst app. And inside the app, like someone put a screenshot of trying to like instantiate an NS color. And it was like, no. I think you mean UI color. I'm like, oh, like, yeah, it's Playgrounds like you saw on the iPad on your Mac, literally, through Catalyst.